Hey guys, Korpen here. It struck me when I watched my tank talks video, the last one where I talked about the upcoming tanks in the next patch, that I had forgotten one tank, the FV4004 Conway, a British tank destroyer, that it's going to be at rank 5. So I thought instead of just mentioning that tank in a short little video, I thought let's do a proper video about the Conway. Obviously, I only have pictures from the Wars Thunder devlog site to show you, as well as some other real pictures from history. Don't have any gameplay, so if you want to see any gameplay or so, you have to wait, unfortunately. With that said, let's talk a little bit about the Conway and why it came to be. It starts with the Charioteer tank destroyer that the British designed after World War II to combat Russian tanks. And basically, British generals shat their pants when they saw the IS-3 heavy tank during the victory parade in Berlin after World War II had ended. All of the nations chose to really show their best tanks and the best equipment during that parade, and the elite troops marched through Berlin, and it was a bit of a propaganda thing, really, since the Allies didn't really see each other as a future peacetime partner. Especially Churchill and Stalin didn't like each other. And Truman was a bit of a wild card. He had just been president for just a couple of months. So one could say that the Cold War really started after World War II, since the Allies were afraid that Soviet would push on into Western Europe. So they continued their weapons program to develop weapons that would be able to take on the Russian tanks. And during that parade, when they saw the IS-3 tank, they thought, okay, the Russians are way ahead of us in tank development. They have tanks that have sloped armor, tanks that have 122mm guns, for peep's sake, whereas our guns have 84mm at best, 90mm in the American tanks. So they really started developing better tanks from there on out, or at least tanks that could take on a heavy tank such as the IS-3. So first out was the Charioteer, but that tank really only had an 84mm gun and a very big turret, since the 84mm gun was a large gun, and it wouldn't be enough to take on the IS-3, not at all from the front. So simultaneously, or right after, there was another development program to develop a heavy tank destroyer that would be able to knock out the IS-3 tanks. Hence the FV4004 Conway. And the FV4004 Conway used a 122mm gun. And the intention of the tank was to combine the mobility of the newly developed Centurion medium tank, the A41 Centurion, and combine it with the 120mm gun that they did think would be enough to battle the IS-3. So the size of the gun required the use of a large turret, and twice as tall as the existing one on the Charioteer. The self-propelled gun was significantly taller than the Charioteer, but the armor was basically the same as on the Centurion, but with a much bigger turret. So compared with the Centurion, the Conway was not only taller, but it was also a lot heavier. It weighed over 50 tons. The 120mm gun would have been enough to destroy vehicles at a great distance at the time. But because of the heavy turret, the tank couldn't really do more than 35 kilometers per hour, even on a highway. So yeah, this drawback, combined with the difficulty of producing the 120mm guns was the end of the program. Although they did try out a different format of the tank destroyer, the FV4005, Stage 1 and Stage 2. They built 2 prototypes where they fitted even bigger turrets onto them and a 183mm gun onto the tank. The Conway program and the FV4005 program were put to an halt, or it was cancelled right after the British Army had received Humber Hornet jeeps that carried ATGMs, and that is anti-tank guided missiles. And that program, or the Humber cars, were a lot cheaper to make and they were much easier to get around the battlefield. The missiles were much more easier to handle and they were pretty effective as well. The new cars would be a lot smaller of a target and a lot faster and more nimble on the battlefield. So eventually that was the end of the heavy tank destroyers in the British Army. So what will this mean for the game in War Thunder? I don't know really. As far as I'm concerned, I haven't really encountered many British tank destroyers in the game. Haven't really played rank 4 and rank 5 since I started playing after breaking my collarbone. My impression has been that the British tank destroyers are quite effective on the battlefield. They're fast, nimble, and their guns have great accuracy, so I can't really see how the 120mm gun would be anything different. Problem with the Conway will be that it has the same armor as the Centurion, and the Centurion's hull armor is a bit thin. And slap on a huge turret onto that chassis with thin armor, I think it's going to be a very big target practice box for the T-54s and the German tanks. But with that said, I think it's going to be an interesting tank and it will probably work in the game. Although I can see how this tank will be best in simulator battles where you can really hide your tank and you have no pop-ups on the screen telling the enemy where you are. And as long as you play this tank as a sniper, I think it will do great in the game. There are many examples of great sniper tanks in the game as of now. You have the Marder 3, which is a great sniper tank, and it has basically no armor at all. And you have the SU-100Y. By the way, I have a video coming up on that tank soon. I've just gotten it, or I've just bought it and tried it out, and it's super fun. It's a bit of a hassle to get very good games in it, but it's kind of nice. It's a funny tank, you know. And that tank doesn't really have armor either. So as long as you play the tank for what it is, I think you will do fine in it in the game. And with that said, I think we'll wrap up the video here. Don't really know all that much about British tank destroyers, so I had to look this one up on the internet. And thank you Tank Archives for the information, by the way, as I did my research on the Conway. And thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a good evening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and I'll see you guys around.